Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Please join me in welcoming our speaker tonight, Lou.
Hi everybody, my name's Lou Sandman and I'm an alcoholic. It's a joy to be here, it really is. In this setting, I kind of feel I ought to start with dearly beloved. Somebody's breaking up over there. I love the Arlington meeting, it has a lot of nostalgia for me. When I was brand new, I used to go to the old Arlington meeting. I had about 3 or 4 weeks, and I was in the St. Andrew's Church, I think it used to be, and I was in there, and the guy I was with said, "Next week I'm leading this meeting, and you're going to read." And I said, "I'm going to what?" "I mean, you're going to read chapter 5. I said, "I can't do that." He said, "You're going to do it." So I went home and I thought, I've been in and out of the entertainment business all my life, and I thought the best thing for me to do is rehearse. So I got a tape recorder, and it was one of those recorders that you could record off the air, music, or turn the switch and record into a mic. And I had been recording music for weeks before that, and I didn't know what was on it. And I went home to rehearse chapter 5, and I put the tape in and I did it, and then I played it back. And this is a true story. I played it back, and then I pushed the play button. And the song that came on prior to Rarely Have We Seen a Person Fail was I Think I'm Going Out of My Mind. I went through chapter 5, God Could and Would Have Sought, and the song that came on after that, honest to God, was The Party's Over. I still have that tape someplace. I've said I'm an alcoholic. I was a daily drinker and a falling down drunk. And I started drinking at 16 years old in New York City, and I liked it right away. I mean, it did something very special for me. When I was in high school, I went out for everything. I mean, if they had a team or a letter or a jacket, I went out for it. I also must tell you that I was third string, everything. I sat on a bench, basketball bench for 4 years and suited up. I'd go in a game when the score was about 92-0 in our favor. I went out for the newspaper, I went out for drama, I went out for football, hockey, everything. Third string. Except I made first string fencing. And the reason I suspect was that they only had 4 guys who went out for the team. And it takes 4 to make a fencing team. I tell that story, and I tell it every time, because when I found alcohol on 17th Street and 3rd Avenue in New York City, I found something at which I was immediately on the first string. I was very, very good at it. There was a place called the German American Rathskeller, and I had a phony draft card. I was 16 years old. It was really a hangout for college guys and gals to sing college songs and chug-a-lug beer. And we used to go in with SONY identification at 16. It was legal in those days in New York to drink at 18. You remember that? They don't think it is anymore. So we'd go in and chug-a-lug beer. And it was drink chug-a-lug, chug-a-lug, chug-a-lug. And the first one down on the table with the glass was the big shot, and I always did that. I was king of the hill. And the guys would say, God damn, Lou, you're good at that, you know. And then I found out very quickly that if I went over to the bar, I could order a shot. And if they serve you beer, they serve you booze. So I take a shot and chase it down with beer, and those are called Boilermakers. And I love them. I love Boilermakers. I liked alcohol. I liked everything about it. I liked the taste, the color, the containers it came in. You know, it was just wonderful. I certainly loved what it did. And we'd get drunk on Friday and Saturday night. We'd go up to the last movie on 44th Street and take the 3rd Avenue well down to 17th Street. Get in a special table. There was a honky-tonk piano upstairs and a honky-tonk piano downstairs, and it was marvelous. And I'd be drinking my shooters and beer, and the guys with me would say, God, you can drink, Lou, and we'd get drunk. And they closed the bar. I don't know what they do now, but in those days in New York, the bars closed at 4 a.m. I came out here, and they closed at 2. So what the hell happened? The cops come or something? What are they doing? 2 o'clock. So we'd get out of the GA at Joe King's Rathskeller at 4 a.m. and I'd be drunk under the weather and go home. And I was a kid and go to bed. And how I got away with it, I don't know, but I did. And the room would start going around, and I'd put my foot out, try to stop it. And that wouldn't work. And then I'd say, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I either get sick or not sick. And next Friday night, we'd be back again, doing the same thing. Now, I don't know whether that was alcoholism or youthful enthusiasm or what that was, but that's what I was doing. And alcohol was very special right from the very beginning for me. As I say, I loved it. And I drank like that, but only on weekends. And I was 18 I got drafted and went in the Army. Went overseas at 18. They put me on a boat and shipped us off to Italy. I went in the Army as a private. That's a PVT, lowest, no stripes, nothing. And I'll have you know that I came out a PFC 2 years later. And I never got busted or anything. And I would like to have had you think that I was Mr., had the Medal of Honor and 4 Purple Hearts, but that was not the fact. I was overseas and went over as a replacement, infantry replacement, rifleman. I don't know what the MO was, but it was 745 or something. And we kept following the lineup. The line in Italy would move up, and the Italian learned that the GI liked to drink. And they used to make home brew, red wine mostly, cognac, whatever. And for 2 cigarettes, I could get my canteen filled. The black market paid about $2 a pack for American cigarettes. We paid a nickel or nothing. And we'd give the local gentry a couple of cigarettes, and they'd fill up our canteen. It was awful stuff. I mean, it was just terrible. But I drank it. I spent 9 months in Italy, moving from Naples to Milan with a canteen of something alcoholic on my hip. And it occurred to me that they got water in Italy, I'm sure. I honest to God don't remember drinking any of it. I was in a little town outside of Pisa, right by Pisa. The Leaning Tower looked straight as hell to me. And I was drinking with a couple of our English soldiers, and I passed out on a little marble bench. And a couple of Italian kids tried to steal my combat boots. They were worth about $40 or $50 in the black market. And I pushed them away, and they were perché americana tutta zigzag. Even I can translate that. So that was 18 and 19. Before I was 21, I had been thrown. I had to come back and sweat out some points, some time on my discharge. I came back to Fayetteville, North Carolina, Fort Bragg. And the Army town right outside Fort Bragg is Fayetteville. And I drank all the time. I met a good drinking buddy by the name of Frank Flanagan. And Frank and I would pool our resources and get a jug or not get a jug or whatever, and we'd go to Fayetteville. And I got thrown out of a bar in Fayetteville, North Carolina by the SPs. That's not altogether true. If memory serves me right, I was thrown out of the whole town of Fayetteville, North Carolina. And if you know Fayetteville, North Carolina, that's a feat, you know. It's a really awful little Army town. I got in better company later on. I got thrown out of the Waldorf Astoria. I don't know again whether that was alcohol. At some point, I crossed what we refer to as the invisible line of alcoholism. And I don't know when that was. And I don't care. I mean, it's really not important. The important thing to me is that I'm here tonight, that I'm a sober member of this program. And I might have missed this. I might have missed it. Newly married, I moved to California in 1954. I took a job in the American Broadcasting Company. And I came out here to take that job because I was, as they say, between work in New York. And ABC had a job for me, and we put everything we owned in the back of a 1949 Chevrolet convertible and drove across country. 8:30 in the morning, we hit the George Washington Bridge on February 23rd, 1954. And arrived here on March 2nd. March 1st, I started work March 2nd. I'll never forget it. Great company for me, but my alcoholism or my drinking was increasing. I don't know when it became alcoholic, but alcoholic it became. And I had a good job, enjoyed it, but my drinking was getting worse, and somewhere along the line, the daily drinking started. I don't know when that was. Somewhere along the line, the morning drinking started, and I don't know when that was. Somewhere along the line, alcohol became my life. And I really don't know when that was either. The whole thing kind of blends together. But it's a progressive terminal disease that we've got, and I've got it. And progressive it was. From the days when I started when I was a kid at 16 to the day that I came here at the age of 44 years old. If my arithmetic is right, that's 27 years of drinking. And it always got worse. It never got any better. The accidents and the blackouts started to happen. The morning drinking started. I was an early morning warm gin drinker. That's not bad. And my drink was 4 ounces of gin and a cheese glass. And I had to get up my morning drinking used to look like baby bottle feeding. It was at 2, 4:36, 8, 11. And I'd have to make a right-hand turn into the bathroom and be very quiet so my wife didn't hear me dry heave, and kneel down in front of our porcelain altar. Somebody's been there. Lay on the tile because it's cool. You ever do that? And I always knew when the gagging and the heaving were over because the tears would start to come down my eyes. And then I could go get my morning medicine, 4 ounces of gin and a cheese glass. I always remember Eddie Regan, a wonderful old-timer in Alcoholics Anonymous, talking about 4 ounces of gin and a cheese glass. I said, "You're right on, Eddie. You know, right on." And that's what I was doing, but you see, I was not alcoholic. I just needed this morning. I rationalized my behavior again and again and again, and we got very good at it. I got very good at it. I had a guy stand in my living room one day and said, "Lou, you're drinking too much. You better go do something about your drinking." And I said, I'm okay, John. Actually, it was my father-in-law. I said, I'm okay, Jack. He said, no, you're and I think John was an alcoholic. But he's not with us anymore, and no one will ever know. But he said, you ought to do what I do, Lou. And I said, what is it you do, John? He said, I keep my drinking down to a pint a day. I said, hell, that's easy. A pint? I can do that. He said, well, maybe you can, maybe you can't. I dismissed that. But then I started my chapter 3 drinking. You remember chapter 3? I was switching from one to another and not drinking this and not drinking that. I said, one morning I said, well, not drink before 11 o'clock. I just won't drink before 11 o'clock. Got in the bathroom, shaved, showered, looked at the watch. I said, it's 9:40. That's close enough. That made sense to me. So as I was going through this, I remembered what this man said about a pint a day. And I said, I ought to try that. So I went over to my favorite neighborhood liquor store. I had an account there. I had 3 accounts. Pay one off, get this one, pay. And I walked in, it was the old square liquor store on Hillhurst. And I walked in and said, hi, Rudy, how are you? There's the owner standing behind the counter. And he said, fine, Lou, how are you? I said, fine, it's nice to see you. He said, it's nice to see you, Lou. And I thought to myself, of course, it's nice to see me. I just put your daughter through college. So I said, what would it cost to you having a sale? We're always having a sale. Could I get a case of pints? So he said, why do you want a case of pints? I have a better price break for you with quarts. And I said, no, I really want the pints because they fit nicely in my liquor cabinet. I don't own a liquor cabinet. I have never owned a liquor cabinet. My whole house was a liquor cabinet. I had an enormous liquor cabinet with an attached garage and a high mortgage. So being part of my grandiose behavior, I said, have them delivered. I could have put the case of pints in the trunk, but I had them delivered, and they were, in fact, delivered to the front foyer. And I opened them up, and in case you've never seen a case of pints, there are not 12 bottles, there are 24 of them. 24 little bottles, all lined up with their tack stands in a row, and they are a beautiful sight to behold. And I'm about to embark on my experiment. Lasted 3 days, tops 4. You can't drink a pint a day when you've got 8 pints open and you don't remember which pints you opened which day. I had a pint open in the garage, I had a pint open in the bathroom, I had a pint open in the bedroom, 2 in the car, and one at work, and they were all over the place, partially open pint bottles. And what the hell with this? He didn't know what he was talking about anyway. I had said that I was a falling down drunk, and that's a fact. In 1970, I fell upstairs. And that's the truth. Think about that. I have fallen downstairs. I have fallen on skateboards, on motorcycles, little motorcycles. I was an athletic drunk, too. I fell off a rug once. I say that because it gets a laugh, but it's true. It's true. I said, you must have waxed the floor to my wife, and she said, no, you stepped on the rug and fell down. So my drinking was continuing and the accidents were happening. One of my accidents took me to the emergency room again, broke my glasses, cut my head open, cut my trousers open. My wife came down and said, Lou, if this doesn't stop, I've had it. I can't take this anymore. I can't take it. And I was blood. It bleed a lot from the head, of course, and I was just blood all over my shirt and everything. And I said, what's the matter with you? I just had a little accident. I'm all right. And they took me to the emergency room again. And I got in there and he sewed me up. The doctor looked at me and said, have you been drinking? And I said, no. Why do you ask? And he said, well, your speech is a little slurry. And I thought he detected an odor of alcohol in your breath. I said, no, you see, doctor, what I had was one codeine pill for the pain, and I had one shot. That's what you smell. I had no codeine. I had a fit, is what I had. And they patched me up and sent me home again. The blackouts were happening, the accidents were happening, and I didn't know how to stop. I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous to quit drinking. Now, a lot of people did. I didn't. My stroke gauge was going so fast that I didn't know how to get out of it. I went to a church one day and I knelt down and I said, please, God, help me. Please, God, help me. It was an empty church. And I didn't know what I was asking help for. I was not asking help to quit drinking. That was not my idea at the point. My idea of help was to get kind of feeling better, stop this squirrel cage, stop this madness and this insanity that I was going through. Please help me, and nothing happened. I was reminded last night of a story. I was an alley drinker and a bar drinker, a kitchen drinker, bedroom drinker, bathroom drinker. I was in an alley in New York City drinking and puking, and I was dressed with a shirt and tie and a suit, and I was out 66th Street. I was in New York not too long ago, and I walked by that alley, and it brought back memories, because I was in a suit and tie trying to keep a drink down at 8 o'clock in the morning in an alley, and I looked up the alley from here to the back of the room was with a sidewalk, and my bosses were going to work. The ABC executives from New York were going to work, and I had to scrunch down behind the garbage can so nobody would see me. I thought that was okay. I didn't see anything about it. I just wanted to I just needed this drink now. And that's the way my rat race was going, around and around and around. And one of the shows that I was assigned to at ABC was the Lawrence Welk Show. Oh, one and then two, and no wonder I drank. That's not true. And there was a photographer on the show who was a marvelous person, and a genius with a camera. His name was Leo North. And Leo worked for Lawrence, and I was the unit man and unit production man on the show. And Leo and I became friendly, and I had 3 little girls. I have 3 grown girls now. And but they were little then, and I said to Leo, would you someday come over and take a picture of my kids, my girls? And he said he would do that. And I said that would be very nice. He said, I won't take any money, I'd be happy to come over. And so he did. And one Saturday morning, he knocked on the door, and I had a drink in my hand. About 9 o'clock. And I said, hi Leo, how are you? What would you like to drink? And he said, nothing, thank you, Lou. I said, I got beer, scotch, bourbon, vodka, gin, and cold beer. What would you like? He said, nothing. And I kept insisting that he have a drink. And insisting. And finally he turned to me in desperation and said, Lou, I'm an alcoholic and a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I don't drink. And I thought, oh my God, what a shame. That poor son of a bitch. And I thought he was a nice guy, you know. See, I didn't trust anybody who didn't drink. Well, that's all he said. That's the only thing he said. And he went about his business and took the pictures of my daughters, and one of them won an award for him, and I've got them at home now, and they're lovely, they're wonderful. But Leo North that morning saved my life. And I didn't know that then, and I don't know whether he realized it or not himself, but that's what he did. Because he stood in my living room when the bottom was falling out, when I didn't know where the hell to go, what to do, and said he was an alcoholic and a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he didn't drink anymore. Because it wasn't too long after that I picked up the phone and called Leo. I said, hi, this is Lou, I'd like to talk to you. He said, fine. And I said, let's have lunch. That's what you do in Hollywood, you do lunch, right? So we went for lunch. And I remember to this day, it was Musso Frank. Went over to Musso's, and I ordered a double gin on the rocks. And he ordered a Coke or coffee. And I made small talk for as long as I possibly could. He said, what is it you'd like to talk to me about, Lou? And I said, what is this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous? He said, why do you ask? And I told him why I was asking. And he said, you and I better go to a meeting tonight. And I said, tonight? You mean tonight? They have meetings? He said, yeah, they do. And he said, Lou, come to the meeting. No one will bother you. He lied, of course. No one will bother you, and there are no dues or fees. It was just, you don't even have to raise your hand. Just come with me to the meeting. And I said, okay. And he told me how to get there. Now, before I tell you the next line, I've got to go back and tell you that in 1968, I was 86th at a thrifty drugstore. That's incomprehensible demoralization. And Leo says you get on the Ventura Freeway and get off of Lower Canyon, take a left-hand turn, cross Ventura Boulevard, and there's a thrifty drugstore there. I said, oh no. Got me back at 50s again. Well, I did that. And I got there at 8 o'clock and parked the car, and he was there waiting for me, and I said, Leo, before I go to the meeting, I got to go in the 50s a minute. He said, what do you need, cigarettes? I smoked them. I said, no, I need a jug. I don't remember what I've got home, and I don't know how long this thing is going to last, and I want to be sure that I've got some booze at home. He didn't say anything. I thought he'd pull out a prayer book. How dare you buy a bottle of alcohol? But he didn't say anything at all. And I went in, I bought a jug, and I threw the bottle on the floor of my car, and I said, okay, let's go to your meeting. And the very first meeting I ever went to was at the North Hollywood Clubhouse on Radford Street. And there was a lady there who was a secretary with a southern accent. And her name was Alabama Carruthers. God bless her. And she said, you all got a problem with alcohol. You're in the right place. I said, who is this woman with that phony accent? Call Central Casting or something. I don't know. She was wonderful. And she was there, and somebody, I think it was she, handed me the 20 questions. You know the 20 questions? I looked at that card, and I went, and I said, this is so... Anybody who knows anything about drinking can pass this stupid test. I really thought that. I mean, if you're drinking a year, you drink alone. Give me a break. And I went, yes, I'm doing pretty good, yes. And I got down to, have you ever been hospitalized? And I said, no, I have never been hospitalized for drinking. The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, that I have been in 4 emergency rooms. Now, follow this carefully. When you go to an emergency room, you don't stay overnight, right? You don't put on a funny gown. You just go to an emergency room. That's not being hospitalized. That's being fixed up, if you will, patched up, if you prefer, but not hospitalized. Now, if you follow that line of thinking tonight, I would suggest that you're in the right room. So the speaker that night was a man, I can still see him, I do not remember his name, but he had been, so help me God, he had been on death row 2 or 3 times. I don't know how you do that, but he had managed to do that. And I got home that night in the living room, and I went to the kitchen and poured a double shooter of gin. And she said, how was the meeting, Lou? And I said it was fine. And as I said that, there were tears in my eyes. Now, I didn't know then why there were tears in my eyes. It was not a crying jag. I had not had that much to drink. I was familiar with crying jags. This was not one of those. But there were tears in my eyes. And what had happened, I know now, was that the love and the laughter and the hope that was in that funny chapel-like building on Radford Street, on the dead-end street, that love, laughter, and hope had rubbed off on me, and I was hooked. But I did not quit drinking right away. I continued drinking. I drank before meetings, I drank after meetings, and I was waiting for Alabama to open up the back room and say, come on, all of you people who need a drink, get one. And of course that didn't happen. I kept hearing, keep coming back a day at a time, a minute at a time. First things first, let go and let God. It's the first drink you get, all of the first drink that gets you drunk, all of the slogans. And I woke up one morning and I said, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to try this day at a time thing. And I called Leo and I said, Leo, I'm not going to drink today. He said, that's wonderful. Don't drink today. It was then about 8 o'clock. At 10:30, I called him back. I said, Leo, I haven't had a drink yet. He said, that's great. Leo, don't drink. At 11:45, I called him again. I said, Leo, I haven't had a drink yet. At 1:15, I called Leo. I said, I still haven't had a drink. He said, that's wonderful, Lou. 2, 3, 4:30, 5, 8. Time for bed. Call Leo. I said, I know it's kind of late. I hate to bother you, but I want you to know that I haven't had a drink all day long. That was a miracle for me. He said, that's nice, Lou. Neither have I. Good night. So then I had my last drink. My last drunk was on February 2nd of 1971. Now, February 2nd is Groundhog's Day. And I love that anniversary. I love that birthday. And I didn't know it was Groundhog's Day until I looked a year later at a calendar getting ready to take a one-year cake. And the calendar said Groundhog's Day. I said, my God, I came out of my hole. You know? And I don't know if I saw my shadow or didn't see my shadow, but out I was. So that was February 2nd of 1971, and February 9th of 1971, I was standing in the dining room at 6 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden the whole house began to shake. And I thought, dear God, nobody told me about this shake. That was the Sylmar earthquake of 1971 on February 9th, exactly a week. And I didn't call Leo until about 6:21. But I didn't drink that day. And I had a week, and that was a miracle. And then I had 2 weeks. I found a meeting over in Encino called the Jack Lomas Memorial Stag Meeting. And those wonderful men taught me AA 101. That's where they said, keep coming back. Where they showed love and concern, where their wisdom and laughter and hope was evident. There's a wonderful group of people. And I always look back on that meeting as very special, but the meetings that have gone since, the last 21 years, I want to say to our newer friends, the last 21 years of my life have been the best 21 years of my life, and I'm 66 years old. I don't hide that. At 66, I've been sober for 21 years. In the last 21 years, I wouldn't trade for the world. AA has given me more than I can ever pay back, and it'll give you more than you ever pay back. I don't want to preach, but if you will just keep coming back to these meetings and hang out with the winners. That's what my sponsor, stick with the winners, which is an old cliche. But it's so true. I needed to identify myself as an alcoholic. I needed to be part of this program. I needed to participate and practice the 12 steps and get a sponsor. And I had a marvelous sponsor. I've had 2 or 3 of them over the years. And without them, would have been far more difficult. But that meeting was wonderful. And there was a man in that meeting named Joe Reedy. And Joe was about 6'4". He used to play football for Notre Dame, Newt Rockne. You ever hear of Newt Rockne years ago? Joe was a football player for Newt Rockne. And I think Joe may have been 3rd string too, I don't know. But Joe loved AA and the people in it, and we used to go to, when I was brand new and went to the Jack Lomas Stag meeting, we'd sit around tables and share, as we always do with a meeting, and it had come to me, and I was brand new. I had about 3 or 4 weeks, and my name is Lou, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'd say something inarticulate, inappropriate, and inaudible. Blah, 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 blah. Joe would always come up to me after the meeting and said, Lou, I really enjoyed what you had to say tonight. Now, he did that, not just for me, he did that for all new people in Alcoholics Anonymous. And Joe and I, to make them feel warm and welcome. And Joe and I became friends over the years, and one day he called me in the office and said, where I go to church, there is an inscription. And it's from St. Francis de Sales. And I would like to have, I'm going to have him printed, that little prayer, printed on cards. But in order to get a price break, I have to have 1,000 printed. And I don't need 1,000. So would you like 500? I said, that would be nice, Joe. He said, I'll have my initials put on 500 and your initials put on another 500. And if you know anything about printing, there goes the price break, right? So he wanted me to have 500 cards. And about 2 weeks later, in the mail, comes a little box of business cards. And I brought them, as I always do whenever I'm sharing, brought them to a meeting. I will leave them up here. If you'd like to have one, please feel free. Tuck it in your book, your pocket, your purse, or not. But I'll read you what's on this. And it says, pray positive. I think it should be pray positively. but I'm not positive about that. I say that because it always gets a laugh. Usually a little bigger than that, I mean. Pray positive. Do not fear what may happen tomorrow. The same loving God who cares for you today will care for you tomorrow and every day. Either he will shield you from suffering, or he will give you unfailing strength to bear it. Be at peace then, and put aside all anxious thoughts and imaginings. St. Francis de Sales. Isn't that beautiful? And then Joe had to have the last word. At the bottom, he put, have a fine attitude. And that's St. Francis de Sales. And I'll leave those here. But those are the people that I met in Alcoholics Anonymous. The wonderful people of AA who reached out and touched my soul. And the people who are so important and so valuable in my early days of sobriety, the list of people who are meaningful to me, that list gets longer and longer the longer I'm here, because I meet more of you. And the wonderful thing is that we can be that inspiration, hope, caring friend to the person who walks in that door brand new. And there's no place in the world where we can do that. And the reason we can do that is because we're drunks, ex-drunks. The reason we can do that because we've been where we've been. When I walked in Alcoholics Anonymous, the people who were put their arm around my shoulder and said, keep coming back, were people who I knew had been where I had been or worse, who cared about me, who showed me how to laugh at myself again, who helped me get my self-respect back, who talked about God. And they talked about a loving God and a caring God, or a higher power if you prefer. But they looked like people with whom I would have drunk, people with whom I would have fallen off a bar stool and laughed. Wonderful people of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I see them again and again and again in these halls. I might have missed this, and it would have been a disaster, because I would have died. I've got a letter from one doctor to another that says, unless Mr. Salmon discontinues drinking, it's inevitable that it's a downhill progression. And I've got that letter, and I took it in my big book. So it's been a marvelous journey for me, and I wouldn't have traded for the world. And I love the people of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love this program. And what I've learned, you have taught me. The people in AA have taught me to, I use an acronym that I kind of like. It's FAT, which is not a very nice acronym, but it's faith, acceptance, and trust. And as long as I have those elements and stay close to God of my understanding, it's going to be okay. If I had more time, there's a story about that I wanted to tell tonight, about a job that I lost, and I heard someone say, this program works in all our affairs, or it doesn't work in any of them. And that's true. And I took the alternate position, and it turned out to be the very best thing that could have happened. In a nutshell, that's the story. I found on page 69 a little phrase. I love to quote the book. It makes you sound like a jerk. It's like page 69 says we found a new employer, and that was true for me. I have evidence of God working in my life. I want to close with a little prayer. It's 25. Could I do that? That a wonderful man named Walter O'Keefe used to use. Walter loved this program, and he was a minstrel, and an actor, and a comedian, and Walter and I became close over the years. And he used to use this poem that really he stole from Robert Louis Stevenson. I'm going to steal it from both of them, because it really epitomizes, I think, our 12 steps and our sobriety and our 12th step in particular. That man is a success, it says, who has lived well, laughed often, loved much, who has found his niche and accomplished his job, who leaves the world a better place than he found it, whether by an improved copy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul, who gave the best he had and looked for the same in others. That man's name is a benediction. And that your people of Alcoholics Anonymous is you. Take it home with you and use it. God bless you and keep coming back.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs, long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.